Hi, I'm Gogo. If you're watching this video, you probably already purchased the Race Link kit, or you're really curious about it. First of all, my buddy Ricky Flip suggested we don't call it a Race Link kit. He said we call it the Superlink. So maybe that name's gonna stick. So if you want to install the Superlink, which doesn't necessarily change the bike and put it into a position automatically, the OEM links, the links that are meant to work with the OEM shock, just do what they do. You put it in, it adds 10 millimeters. You put it in, it adds 20 millimeters, depending on which one you get. The Race Link, the Superlink, gives you the option to adjust the bike in a whole range of places. It automatically changes the progressive nature from 11.8% to just 3.5, which is wonderful. It's much more linear, like sport bike, track bike should be, race bike. But as far as ride height, that's kind of an open opportunity for you to tune the bike to your liking, where with the OEM stuff, you're stuck. So you bought a height adjustable shock, an aftermarket, WP Apex Pro, the Mupo. There's a new shock that I'm just learning for myself called Maxton, which is also for this bike. It's also height adjustable, so it's great. Everybody knows sport bike, you want to have the ability to raise and lower the rear to your liking. But unfortunately, the way the Superduked is designed, this link down here, see how close the shock is to the control arm? This little space is all you have. You make that shock longer and it's gonna hit the control arm. It hits the control arm. Trust me, I did it, and that's why I made this part, because of this problem. So that is one of the most beautiful elements of this Superlink. Its shape offers you the ability to adjust the shock, right? It's not gonna hit anymore. So that's wonderful. Now how do you put the damn thing in? It's really not that difficult. But the first thing you wanna do, since this is such a subjective area, right? You know, you can ask me, well, what height should I put it to? I set this bike, my race bike, by using this tool, which I haven't produced yet, but I'm going to, and you'll be able to buy it, hopefully as cheap as possible. And so I stick it in here, into the frame, and I get a consistent place to measure from. I measure from the axle up to perfectly vertically, right up to this point. And if I change my gearing, I can adjust the shock, get back to my height. Mine is 333 millimeters. But that number means nothing to you because you don't have this tool. So for now, what's the best way to handle getting your bike to a better ride height? So you have a better swing arm angle and a little bit less trail on the forks and better drive out of turns and better turning, but a shorter turning radius, more roll speed, all that stuff. I suggest that you take the bike and jack it up, however you're gonna jack it up. I take these jack stands and I put the bike on the rear stand, right? And then I slide the jack stands underneath it and I lower it onto there. Now the rear is hanging in the air. The rear tire is just hanging in the air. The suspension is fully extended. That's how you tell when the shock is gonna hit the control arm or not. Because when the bike is sitting on the stand, when the bike is weighted, it won't be that close to the control arm. You'll think, oh, there's no problem. That's not when there's a problem. The problem occurs when the swing arm extends out. That's when the two parts hit. So put it on the jack stands, let the rear tire hang, and now, still, you didn't take anything apart. This is the OEM link and shock situation. If you already have your race shock, I would suggest you put the stock shock back in, just for this test. So you have the stock shock in, you have the stock linkage in, you have the stock control arm in, just like this bike is now. Take a tape measure and measure from, I'm using the shaft that goes into this rear axle, or you can hook just under and go straight up, as straight as you can, and find a place that's repeatable. A repeatable place, maybe put a piece of tape or something on your tail section that's not gonna move. It's, you know what I mean? It's gonna be consistent for at least an hour. take a measurement, and let's say it's 1,000 millimeters. Okay, write it down. Now, take the bike apart, take your linkage apart, take the control arm out, put your race shock in, because remember, the Superlink works with the race shock only. It's not meant for the OEM shock. It won't work out so well for you. OEM shock, use the other two links that we have, the +10, the +20. But the Superlink, use with a race shock. So take your race shock, put it in, and put it together, and then retake your measurement. And you should be, well, for reference sake, I, on this race bike, race at 30 millimeters higher than stock, which is pretty extreme, but I'm on the razor's edge. You might, for the street, you might not want to be that intense, right? So let's say you just want to add 10 millimeters or 15 millimeters, whatever you decide, whatever you like as you feel. I personally would go a little bit at a time. You'd go 10. It's easy to change because once you have this all together, you don't have to take the shock out to adjust the height. You can just reach down there. On my Mupo shock, it's a 24 millimeter locking nut and a 24 millimeter shaft that you use to rotate the shaft to extend the height. So you just hold the top one with a 24, grab the locking nut with a 24, and break them apart from each other. Adjust your height. Remember, 1 millimeter on your shock is 2 millimeters back here, right? So, give it a little more height. Lock that nut back in, take a measurement. Oh yeah, I'm at 1,015. Oh, 15 maybe is where you want to start. 10 is maybe where you want to start. It's up to you. It's up to your feel. It's up to what you like. That's the whole beauty of this. It gives you the opportunity to tune your bike the way you want it to. And you can go in this wide range that was never before available. So now we're going to get close up and I'm going to show you some of the tips that I have learned from doing this about 3,000 times this past year. So I'm going to remove the stock link. Okay, so these bolts are unfortunately ugly. One day in the future you can have titanium like these. All right. So what we want to do first is undo these bolts. Shock, control arm, swing arm, and it's pretty easy. I lean on the rear stand a little bit to lift up the swing arm and take off this tension. And I already have these bolts loose, so pull this out, pull this out, pull this out. Wasn't that beautiful? So simple. Now we have to get the front bolt. So obviously I already have mine loose. So I'm just gonna pull it out. Now, this bolt right here is the front control arm bolt. Now, accessing it for me, I have to pull this exhaust a little bit out of the way. So I have the exhaust loosened so I can just pry down the exhaust a little bit. Put your Torx in here. You can see this? So once you loosen this bolt, this is a really key thing to do. Once you loosen this bolt, let's say you go 1 turn, 2 turns, right? That's all. Just do 2 turns. Now, KTM has this interesting system of, they have the nut that's on the receiving end of this bolt on the other side of the control arm is actually slides in and out of the motor mount. It actually slides forward as you tighten this bolt. That nut slides forward against the control arm and then tightens it, so it holds it really snugly. So if you just took this bolt out, if you were just to spin this bolt out, and it would be hard to pull the control arm out, first of all, and it would be nearly impossible to get the new control arm in. So what you do is, what I found is a great thing to do is, okay, so it's all the way tight, right? So I go like 1 turn, 2 turns. Then I'll take a mallet, take a something, and hit this 1, 2 times. You didn't see me do this. I'm not going to do it with a ratchet. Just like that. You just knock it in. You may have to do a little harder than that. And then pull this bolt out the rest of the way. Believe me, those 2 little shots will help you so much in the future, because now you just pull this out and look, the control arm just fell out because we opened up the space that it goes into, that this goes into. We opened it up. Now we can take the new one and just slide it in. Okay, so here is the control arm when you get it out of the bike. You see, it looks a little different than the control arm you got just out of your package. And here's the difference. This spacer, there's 4 of them, you have to reuse from your original piece. This piece has brand new bearings in it, 2 up front, 2 in the back. It has a washer, and it has dust seals, 4 dust seals and 4 washers and 4 sets of bearings. So it's kind of complete. But these spacers, and there's like a wrist pin in here, you have to take them out of your original control arm and put them in to the Superlink. So the way I found to do this is really easy, is you take just the same bolt that bolts this in, just put it in a little bit and turn the bolt sideways. So go in like 1/4 inch, turn it sideways, and then you'll see, it just comes out. See that? Simple. And I don't even touch it with my hands. Okay, I touched it with my hands. Just put it in there, right? So let's do it again for the other side. Take this bolt, put it in 1/4 inch, maybe 1/8 inch, and out it comes. Now, put it in there. So at this point, you have the 2 wrist pins, see them in there? That's the wrist pin. Those are still in, and these 2 spacers are still in. Or shims, whatever you want to call them. Leave them there. This piece now has these 2 shims in, flip it over. Now, in order to get this wrist pin out, you can sometimes just turn it over and it will fall out. See, it's starting to fall out? So it just starts to fall out, and just let it fall in. Same thing here. Turn it upside down. Let it just fall out. It's fully lubricated. The bearings come already lubricated, so it just slides right out. So now you have the wrist pin in. Didn't even touch with my hands yet. Put this bolt in. Try this out. That's it. Now your new Superlink control arm is ready to go in. And if you look closely, there's an arrow. See the little arrow right there? That arrow means forward. So that's the way it goes in the bike. It goes over the exhaust and under the shock. Now let's put this thing in. Okay, so you have your race shock in at some random length, who knows what it is. And now it's time to put the new control arm in. So take your front control arm bolt, slide it in. You don't know how far to go. Just put your finger back here into like the motor mount area and maybe just pull it shy of protruding, whatever, 1/8 inch, 1/16 inch, 2 millimeters, whatever. Now, take your control arm and it's gonna slide so nice and easily into that area. And you just have to be a little magical and find the right spot that the bolt's just gonna slide right through it. And there it is. So I just jiggled it around a little bit and slid the bolt in. So now in order to tighten this, I'm gonna be a gorilla and move the exhaust out of the way, because that's just how I roll. Okay, that's snug. So you'll torque this down. I'll put the torque specs in the description of this video because I have them in the manual, but I don't have the manual with me. So that's one thing. Now for the fun part of installing the Superlinks. It's pretty easy. You see the links have this little nipple down there and a nipple down there, and there's nothing on this one side. That one side is what goes to the swing arm. And it's kind of foolproof, right? Because You can't put it on this way because the nipple hits this little circle. You just can't fit it in. So this is the only way you can do it. I promise you, you're not going to screw this up. So I bought from eBay these titanium bolts, just the right size and shape, and I'll put a link in the description for those too. So now you just got to find this happy place for this and put this one in. Take the other side, the link for the other side. Slide it on there, slide it on there. Just as a conversation piece, I've been told by some that titanium bolts and nuts have a tendency to come loose over time. So when you order them, I'll send you a link to the ones that have holes pre-drilled for safety wire. So you can know, once you put it together, that they're never gonna come off. Now, I take my foot on the rear stand, on my knee, and I just lift up with my knee a little bit while I'm here on my side on the floor, and that's how I can jiggle this around, just with my knee. So once I get it into the right place, put your bolt in, put your nut on, and Bob's your uncle. I have no idea where that saying came from, but I don't even have an uncle named Bob, but there you go. Now, you might be wondering, what the hell is that little nub? That is my data acquisition. This is called a potentiometer, and it follows the shock as it travels up and down. And the computer that comes with it, this AIM system, records every movement around the track a million times a second or whatever it is, and it syncs it with GPS, so you can look at what your suspension travel is at different times and different places around the track, and that's one of the tools that we use to develop this linkage system, because we got excellent data from there. So now you would torque everything you need to torque, safety wire it, tighten everything's good to go, and then go up and re-measure your height and see if you're in the right place. So that's it. It was as simple as that. It's not a very complicated installation. And it's not a complicated thing to use either, but the possibilities might feel a little bit overwhelming. What you've just done is, yes, automatically you've changed the progressive nature of the OEM link, and you've reduced it from almost 12% to 3.5%, which is beautiful. It means now when your bike reacts to subtle things and extreme things, bumps and drives, it'll react consistently, much more consistently than it would otherwise, because now your bike can be tailored to you. Now you can tailor your bike to fit the way you ride, the way you want it to react. Whereas before, in the OEM form, they had to make the bike so anybody could ride it, and everybody. And somebody who wanted to put a huge person on the back with them as a passenger has to be able to handle that. Some little guy who's 120 pounds has to be able to handle that. So the bike is not really appropriate. It's not really perfectly set up for anybody. It's a compromise. The whole idea of this Superlink is to give you the opportunity to set your bike up for you. No more you and an elephant, or no more you 120 pounds. If you're really 240 pounds, you can set the bike up for that. And also, everyone rides their bike a different way. We don't all ride the same way. That's why there's not one suspension setup that's good for 100 people in the room. Everyone's going to ride differently. Some people put their weight more forward, some people put their weight more back, lean over. So it's really great to have the ability to tailor your bike the way you like it, the way you appreciate the way it feels, which is what you've just done. Having said that, you don't have to start totally in the dark. You don't have to be completely on your own, right? You installed the link. It wasn't that hard to do. Now what do you do? That's why I'm suggesting that before you put it in, like you have your race shock already installed, you have your Mupo or your Maxton or your Penske or your WP Apex, you've already had it bolted onto the bike, or maybe you're just getting it. Take it out. So it's only one more bolt, right? Take the shock out, put your stock shock back in. Now measure it. Measure your bike. Find that place, go from the axle straight up as you can, a repeatable place, put a piece of tape with a little pen or something, 1,000 millimeters or whatever it is. Write it down. Now you put the link on, you put your race shock back in, you put the Superlink on, you bolt everything together, torque it down. Now measure again. And maybe you're going to be at 1,010. Maybe that's a great place to start. You don't have to do anything. Don't have to adjust the height of the shock at all. Maybe you want more. Whatever it is. So now take that measurement and say, okay, I know where I am. Write that number down. You're at 110 millimeters from when the swing arm is hanging. You still have the bike up on jack stands, and the swing arm is hanging when the tire is off the ground. That's your measurement. Write it down. Now I'm going to go ride the bike. I'm going to enjoy the bike. Ride around, do some stuff. So maybe next weekend you go for a ride. I'm going to try a little different, right? So now you give yourself another 5 millimeters. I don't like big changes at once. I sneak up on big changes, right? But one at a time. If ever I come in from the track and someone says, it would never happen anymore, but you're 2 seconds a lap faster than you ever were before. Holy crap, I'm about to crash. I'd rather be a 10th faster, and then a 10th faster, and then a 10th faster. That's the safe way to do it. So take little bites. Go out, ride the bike, come back, give it up a little bit more. If I measured my bike and it was 1,000, and I wanted to replicate this setup of this race bike, and we just did super well at Laguna Seca last weekend, beating a lot of people that probably when they saw us on the entry sheets were like, what the hell is that guy doing in the race? And we kicked all their asses. And we're talking about hot guys on hot bikes, like guys that run Moto America, right? So my settings, if I measured 1,000 millimeters on my stock bike, and then I put my link in and my shock the way I have it set up, it would be 1,030, 30 millimeters higher than stock. That's a lot. That's very, very aggressive. You probably don't want 30. Like I said, start with 10. Go to 15, maybe 20, whatever you like. But the last thing to keep in mind is, depending on the gearing that you chose, and I can help you with this too, depending on the position of your eccentric, which you adjusted to fit your gearing, some of the positions of the eccentric are going to make you lose ride height. Other ones are going to make you gain ride height, right? So some chain link combinations, let's say you went to I'm 1640 or whatever you changed, right? You may have lost up to 9 millimeters of ride height. There's a case where, thank God for this link, right? There's a case where you definitely want to add 10 just to get you at the OEM height. So you're obviously going to go more than that. So I would go 20 more than it was, right? So this way you're only 10 more than OEM. So if you did change your gearing and you don't really know, like, oh, what is that compared to OEM, just email me or leave a message in the comments and I will help you out. I promise this, I get 4 million views and 4 million comments, which don't see that happening. I'll be able to respond to everybody. So that's it. Good luck.